Martell Holt has said a lot over the years, but this time, he crossed a line no one saw coming. His words hit so hard that Arionne Curry broke down in tears, and now fans are asking, what did he say that hurt her this deeply? Why does this moment reveal more about their real relationship than ever before? Stay with me, because the truth behind this emotional fallout will leave you absolutely speechless. Martell Holt and Arionne will leave you absolutely speechless. Martell Holt and Arionne Curry's story has become one of the most explosive and controversial sagas tied to love and marriage, Huntsville. For years, their names have been linked to scandal, secrets, and heartbreak that played out in front of millions. But just when everyone thought the storm had finally calmed, Martell said something that changed everything. His recent remarks didn't just spark tension, they broke something deeper. What followed wasn't drama for the cameras, it was raw, emotional, and painfully real. Fans watched as Arionne broke down in tears, and for the first time, many believed they were seeing the truth behind their complicated bond, beyond the social media posts, beyond the rumors, and beyond the show. In this video, we're pulling back the curtain on everything, from the long, messy history that led to this breaking point to the exact moment Martell's words cut through years of silence. We'll explore how the public reacted, what this reveals about Martell's pattern of behavior, and why Arionne's tears may say far more than her words ever could. And trust me, you don't want to miss a single moment of this. Because by the time we reach the end, you'll realize this story isn't just about reality TV drama, it's about betrayal, public pressure, and the heavy cost of a love that spiraled out of control. To truly understand why Martell Holt's words hit Arionne Curry so deeply, we have to go back to where it all began. Because this wasn't a brief romance or a passing headline. This was a storm that had been building for years, shaping not only their lives but the way the world saw them. Martell Holt first stepped into the spotlight as one of the standout figures on Love and Marriage, Huntsville, a reality series built around the business, relationships, and social circles of successful couples in Huntsville, Alabama. On screen, Martell and his then-wife Melody Holt appeared to have it all: charm, ambition, and the kind of chemistry that made them instant fan favorites. But behind the cameras, something else was unfolding. Something that would eventually unravel everything they had built. That's where Arionne Curry entered the picture. Though she wasn't part of the show, her name would soon become impossible to separate from its story. Martell's long-running affair with her became one of the most shocking and defining scandals the series had ever seen. A secret that, once exposed, changed everything for everyone involved. It was more than a fleeting error. Martell and Arionne both claimed that their romance lasted for years, during which time Martell remained married to Melody. The public revelation of the affair, which ultimately resulted in the total dissolution of Martell and Melody's marriage, stunned fans. This affair put Arionne in the middle of a storm that she had never requested to be a part of. She was dragged over social media and branded as the other woman after being largely unknown. Every action she took was being watched. All of her posts were analyzed. Furthermore, Arionne appeared to receive the most criticism from the public, portrayed as a villain in a narrative in which both sides had a part to play, even if Martell frequently took the brunt of it as well. But despite everything, Martell and Arionne remain close. Their lives are connected in ways that go well beyond the tabloid headlines because they have a child together. However, that relationship has never been straightforward. Martell has publicly acknowledged his relationship with Arionne. On the one hand, he has, however, regularly separated from her in public settings, allowing her to fend for herself against outbursts of criticism. Their story is so tangled and poignant because of this push and pull dynamic. Martell has a propensity to downplay or sidestep any subject that comes up, particularly while cameras are running or interviews are taking place, whereas Arionne has frequently stated that she feels misunderstood, misrepresented, and abandoned. We reached breaking point as a result. The years of stress, suffering, and public scrutiny had already accumulated by the time of this most recent exchange, in which Martell's stern comments brought Arionne to tears. This went beyond a single remark. It was about all of its predecessors, because their past reveals a relationship characterized by relentless judgment, betrayal, and deception. Two individuals are depicted, torn between public disgrace and private loyalty, and you witness feelings that never seem to fully go away, regardless of how much time goes by. However, this is when the intriguing part begins. Martell's latest comments were hurtful to more than only Arionne. They also revealed a more profound reality about his true feelings for her. Despite everything they have experienced together, fans were unable to overlook that portion. Fans were taken aback not only by what Martell Holt said to Arionne Curry, but also by the manner in which he said it. When the video of his remarks appeared, the public has been associating Martell and Arionne for years, against their will, sometimes voluntarily. However, Martell's choice to talk about her this time was really scathing. So contemptuous that Arionne was clearly rattled. Let's establish the scene. The conversation was not private. It was a private discussion between two co-parents trying to work out their differences. No, Martell's remarks were made in the midst of a public debate that was being watched by cameras, microphones, and social media users. Martell wasn't the only one talking to Arionne. This was the world's first time hearing Martell talk about her, and the weight of the delivery added to the sting's intensity. What precisely did he say then? The main takeaway from Martell's comments was that, in his opinion, Arionne was never really important in his life, at least not in the sense she might have thought. He minimized her involvement to a mere incident and wrote off the years-long affair as an error. Essentially, he implied that she was unimportant, that her position in his life was just ephemeral, and that it was inappropriate for the world to place any significance on her. The harshness of those remarks alone would have been sufficient. However, the impact was exacerbated by Martell's tone, which was icy and almost informal. Rather than express appreciation, thanks, or even sympathy for the years of devotion she had given him, in spite of the mayhem it produced, he decided to make her a disposable character in his story. This was like twisting the knife for Arionne, who had suffered years of online abuse, public humiliation, and mockery for his involvement with Martell. Imagine supporting someone as their marriage fell apart, taking the brunt of the criticism that ought to have been directed at them, and then learning that, in their opinion, you were never really important. She was broken by more than simply what Martell said. Their history had been betrayed. It was the denial of every feeling, every sacrifice, and every experience she had held on to as evidence that their connection was more meaningful than the outside world thought. Arionne was therefore unable to control her emotions at that precise moment. She cried not just because Martell had chastised her, but also because his comments validated her worst fear that she had been worthless in his tale after all. The audience was split. According to others, Martell was at last being straightforward and not sugarcoating the truth about their predicament. Others viewed his remarks as needlessly harsh, pointing out that regardless of Arionne's transgressions, she didn't deserve to be denigrated in such a humiliating and public manner. In actuality, Martell's comments were a mirror of his continuous struggle with reputation and image. In a sense, he was attempting to save his reputation by downplaying Arionne, as though changing the past could undo the decisions that brought him to this moment. However, he also showed a side of himself that appeared aloof, contemptuous, and unwilling to accept responsibility for the emotional devastation he had left behind. The twist that made this moment even more agonizing is right here. Arionne's emotional reaction went beyond the past. It had to do with the future. Because when someone minimizes your contribution to their life, they are doing more than simply deleting the past. They're putting an end to any future chances of recognition. Arionne was struck hard by that understanding. The tears were shed, not just because of Martell's words, but also because of their significance. That she might never be seen as a chapter in her own tale, but rather as a footnote in Martell's, even after all the years of devotion, the kid they have together, and the link that once bound them together. This is where it becomes even more explosive though. Arionne was moved by more than just Martell's words. Additionally, they ignited an online firestorm, with bloggers, fans, and even other cast members contributing their thoughts. What did Martell's public rejection of Arionne reveal about his true feelings for the women in his life? When Martell Holt's remarks on Arionne Curry appeared online, there was an instantaneous and fierce reaction. Discussions, comments, and reactions erupted on social media. In a matter of hours, hashtags associated with Martell and Arionne were popular on social media sites like Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. Even while responses differed, one thing seemed evident. There was a lot of conversation and strong ideas. Viewers have been split on the Martell and Arionne saga for years. Some people feel sorry for Arionne because they believe she was a woman who was caught up in a scenario that got out of hand. Others see her as someone who intentionally dated a married man and must so deal with the fallout from that choice. However, many of the people who had previously attacked Arionne changed their minds after Martell so ruthlessly discarded her. Martell is once again demonstrating his lack of respect for women by posting comments on Twitter that read, "I don't care what Arionne did. No woman deserves to be talked to like that. These kinds of posts received thousands of retweets and comments after going popular. The general consensus was that Martell had gone too far, that even if Arionne had erred, it was still needless and inappropriate for him to openly disparage her. Instagram sites that report on turmoil on reality TV also had a great time. Videos and headlines were provided by pages such as Neighborhood Talk, The Shade Room, and innumerable fan-run accounts, which sparked contentious discussions in the comments section. The irony that Martell, who had continued a relationship for years, was now attempting to downplay the woman who supported him through his darkest moments was brought out by some people. Others observed that Arionne's tears served as a reminder that, despite the rumors and headlines, there's a real person experiencing genuine emotional suffering. At the same time, reaction videos and fan edits started making the rounds on TikTok to emphasize the difference between her loyalty and Arionne's icy dismissal. Several creators intercut Martell's comments with snippets of Arionne from earlier interviews. "This is heartbreaking. She really thought she meant something to him." These films received hundreds of millions of views, but the most hurtful criticism of Martell may have come from within the Marriage and Love fan base in Huntsville. Devoted watchers who had been following his plot since the start expressed their annoyance, claiming that this was just another instance of Martell avoiding responsibility for his deeds. Many believed that he was rewriting history and shifting blame at Arionne's expense rather than dealing with the harm he had caused. And it wasn't only fans who were criticizing him. Public leaders and other reality TV stars also added their voices. Some said they couldn't believe Martell would publicly disgrace his child's mother, while others said he was using Arionne as a scapegoat to boost his reputation. The discussion swiftly grew into something more extensive. A conversation regarding the frequent demonization of women on reality TV. It's crucial to remember that not everyone supported Arionne, even though men got to dictate the story. Voices continued to scream, "This is karma for her choices," or "She knew what she was getting into." However, for Martell, who has always been worried about his image and reputation, this was a big issue because he came across as cold, dismissive, and unfailing rather than strong or apologetic. Many people, including those who had never previously supported her, were criticizing Martell's lack of empathy, and the backlash was so loud that it started to overshadow the remarks themselves. And that can be devastating in the world of reality TV, where public opinion is everything. But here's what made this moment even more crucial. Arionne's tears showed the public something they hadn't seen in a long time: vulnerability. For years she had been portrayed as the other woman, someone who was defiant, unrepentant, and even aggressive in defending her decisions. Arionne was no longer just the mistress, she was now a mother, a woman, and a person dealing with emotional trauma. This change in perspective was significant because, although it didn't change her previous choices, it humanized her in the eyes of many. In this moment, however, viewers saw a woman who was hurt, broken, and dismissed by the very man she gave so much for. In addition, the backlash sparked speculation about Martell's future, not just with Arionne, but also with regard to his public career, including whether he could survive in the spotlight if he was consistently depicted as disrespectful to women. Whether fans would eventually stop following him altogether, fed up with seeing him shift the blame while others bore the emotional toll, and whether Martell actually underestimated the public's reaction. However, it backfired, reminding people of all the suffering, drama, and devastation his choices had already caused, and portraying him as someone unwilling to take responsibility for it. He may have believed that by downplaying Arionne, he would appear stronger and more in control of his story, but it was about something more than Martell. But here's where it gets even more interesting. The backlash wasn't limited to Martell's public image. His comments sparked discussions about accountability, respect, and the lasting effects of emotional neglect. And they sparked discussions that went far beyond reality TV. Nothing about the relationship between Martell Holt and Arionne Curry has ever been straightforward. From the start, their relationship was entangled in secrecy, betrayal, and controversy. It also rekindled questions about his continued relationship with Arionne, because if he could publicly dismiss her in this way, what does that mean about where they truly stand behind the scenes? To answer that, we need to look past the rhetoric and consider the facts of their case, because, despite Martell's public rejection of Arionne in ways that appear icy and definitive, their relationship isn't something that can be broken quickly because they have a child together, and co-parenting is the only thing that unquestionably binds them together, and it makes things more difficult. Whether they want to or not, this reality is particularly painful for Arionne because their child keeps them connected in ways they cannot avoid, regardless of how harsh Martell's words may have been or how broken Arionne feels after hearing them. This means they must interact, communicate, and deal with the emotional fallout. She must balance maintaining a certain level of civility with Martell for the sake of their child with protecting her own mental and emotional well-being after being publicly dismissed. This balancing act between co-parenting and self-preservation is something that many women can identify with, and it's one of the reasons that so many viewers now feel empathy for her in a way that they never did before. Although Martell may publicly downplay the importance of his relationship with Arionne, there are rumors and conjectures that their relationship is more complicated than he portrays it to be. According to some insiders, Martell continues to reach out to Arionne, and their exchanges alternate between heated arguments and reconciliation. Whatever the truth, one thing is certain: Martell's public rejection of Arionne doesn't negate the reality of their private interactions. Others think that Martell, who has previously battled control and image issues, uses this intermittent connection as a means of maintaining power in their relationship. And that is the reason the situation is so complicated. Imagine being told in public that you never mattered while still having to deal with that same person in private to raise your child. For Arionne, the contradiction between Martell's public statements and their private co-parenting reality can be extremely perplexing and emotionally damaging. As many have noted, Martell's remarks were not just about Arionne, they were also about establishing the tone for how he wants the world to perceive him going forward. By downplaying her role, he tries to rewrite the story of his past, portraying himself as someone who was caught in a mistake rather than someone who voluntarily made repeated choices. Fans are aware that this is a recipe for ongoing heartbreak. The tension between Martell's words and the reality of his life is what keeps fans interested and why they keep watching every move he and Arionne make. However, the problem is that Arionne, their child, and the very public nature of their relationship all serve as living evidence that she was more than just a mistake. Arionne will always be connected to his story, regardless of how hard Martell attempts to distance himself from it. She reminds the public that she is not merely a supporting character in his life, but rather a part of the main plot with every interview, live stream, and heartfelt moment. While she may have sobbed in this moment, many fans think that this could be a turning point for Arionne, an opportunity to stop living in Martell's shadow and begin writing her own story. The backlash Martell faced brought her an unprecedented amount of public sympathy, and for Arionne, the present is about reclaiming some of that power. She may be able to change how people perceive her if she decides to use it, but the question is, will she be drawn back into Martell's orbit? Torn between love, loyalty, and the unbreakable bond of co-parenting, this is a complex and captivating moment because there may never be a clear-cut conclusion. Their story is still relevant because, at its core, it's not just about reality TV drama. Martell may claim to have moved on, but his actions frequently suggest otherwise. Arionne may try to remain strong, but her tears reveal that the wounds are still fresh. The past cannot be erased, the child cannot be ignored, and the emotions cannot be simply turned off. It's about love, loyalty, treachery, and the fight to go on when the past won't let go.